Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my Dunkirk movie review. So, to describe this movie in one word, I would have to use the word realistic. I was a little bit concerned when it was announced that this movie was going to be PG-13. I often like to see all aspects of war, including the horrors of it. But having seen the film, I can see how that wasn't too much of a concern. So this movie was very, very realistic. I can only imagine if someone like Michael Bay had done this movie and there'd be like, oh, it would have just been way over sensationalized. And Chris Nolan really grounded this movie in realism. Um, I will say that I was a bit let down by the film. I was expecting to be blown away, and I wasn't blown away. And there were some moments I could tell by the actors' faces and by the music swells and whatnot that they were really going for an emotional connection, but there was not. And I think the main reason is that I don't even think you know any of the characters' names in this movie, which is fine, because this movie more so is about the event. You've got Tom Hardy in this movie as a British Air Force pilot, and Cillian Murphy as a U-boat sailor who gets picked up by Mark Rylance's character, who is a civilian. The one thing that I can't get out of my head with this movie is being a U.S. veteran myself. And assuming I am a big war movies are my second favorite genre, and I love World War II history in particular, more so than any other war. This is a battle I was not too familiar with. I'm more interested in the American battles that were fought. Um, but having seen this movie, this was an absolute tactical disaster that this happened. If this is how it really happened, they pretty much told everybody, all the Brits, to abandon their fighting positions and come back to the beach and evacuate. But there was no evacuation. There was like one boat they were shuttling back and forth because Winston Churchill decided to go and defend England because he thought they were about to get invaded by Germany. Um, so they're just sitting there on the beach with their thumbs up their ass, getting picked off by German planes. How did this happen? You never abandon your. When you evacuate, it means you have the Navy is there at the beach. They'll be there in 30 minutes, so you better be there. Boom, you run straight onto the boat and you get the hell out of there. Not go to the beach and wait for a week while they pick you off. That was so terrible. I could just sense like it was just a screw up, man. So that's about the event. Now going back to the movie, Chris Nolan, I actually think this is one of his worst films, sadly. And yeah, I was disappointed. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's not a bad movie. But I was disappointed. Um, so you don't know any of the characters' names. So when certain things happen, you just kind of like you want to care, but you find yourself very detached. If it follows around like one guy who gets caught getting shot at right at the beginning by Germans. Follows around Tom Hardy's character, who's a pilot, who's shooting down some of the German fighters and bombers. Mark Rylance, a civilian sailor. So what Churchill did was he gave some special order to go send every available civilian boat because he wanted all the naval boats back, and he was only going to use one naval boat or two to shuttle back and forth because he's like, we got to defend the homeland. The Nazis are going to invade, which they never did in reality. And if you don't know that, you should probably go back to high school. Uh, so, and it follows around. Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. There's kind of like an army general and a navy admiral that are on the beach, just like, yeah, this is screwed up. Yep, it's screwed up. Um, and yeah, so that caused that to fall short. Um, it One thing I really liked were the sound effects in this movie. I saw it in IMAX, which by the way, it was a I recommend seeing it in IMAX if you go see it. In particular, the airplane sounds. You spend a lot of time in the plane, and it was not some overdone again Michael Bay type. It was like that's how combat was back then. It was like you get your angles right, you try and shoot them. It was very realistic, and I understand that. But just because it was realistic doesn't mean okay, like you gotta give the movie as a whole a 10. I just felt like it fell short emotionally, and Chris Nolan is known for his doing his clever editing, right? But in this case, so he tried to do that in this movie, right? Where you see something happen, right, and then you see it from another perspective. But then there's another time it's night, or you think it's night, and then it's day, and then you see it happen again, and I was like, okay, wait a minute, what did I just see? Did I just see something happen? Is that an error? I don't know what just happened. And then other times you weren't sure that you were looking at it from a different perspective. Like for example, at one point there's a bomber gonna bomb a boat that's it's taking back survivors, and Tom Hardy comes in and shoots it down. Um, but uh, and then later you see a pilot shooting down a bomber, but you had also seen another boat go down earlier, but it was nighttime. But so you're not sure what you're seeing. And the same, you see Tom Hardy as wingman goes down and crashes into the water, but survives. But you see him crash in front of a civilian boat. Later, you follow Mark Rylance's character, and they pick him up way later in the movie. So that's the first time I was like, oh, okay, now that's from that perspective. But other times, you're just not sure what you're looking at. Like, be, there's a boat that these like guys that are hiding in. It's like trying to float away in the tide, and you're not really sure when Tom Hardy comes by what it is you're seeing. And there's another point where Tom Hardy runs out of fuel, but then it seems like he kept flying. I know you know I work in the aircraft business. I understand you can glide for quite a while, but it seemed like he was gliding and he shot down another plane. He turned around, flew by, and then like uh, all when his engine had already shut off. Um, I I doing those editing tricks was really just throwing me off. And I think what had happened is he kind of saw that his footage he didn't have enough because this movie was way shorter than I thought. I thought this was gonna be like a 2.5 hour movie. I was out, including it was an 8:45 movie. I was out by like out of the theater, right? So that's including the previews. I was back in my car at like 10:40. So it must have been like an hour and a half or so, maybe less. Um, so I was surprised about that, and I feel like he tried to use that like editing from like the that like, oh, here's from this perspective the pilot crashes, and now you see it from the boat's perspective. I think he realized he didn't have anything, and he tried to splice the thing together. Um, there's not a lot of dialogue. This is how war is. It's a lot of screwed up bad decisions, and then you get stuck in this terrible scenario. I mean, it was frightening. There were times when I was like, "Oh my God, this is horrifying." They're all there like sitting ducks, just getting picked off by the German soldiers. But there's no I don't know. I definitely didn't want a love story or anything. I didn't want it over sensationalized. I feel like this event was like, okay, they're stranded there. Send the civilians. The civilians pick them up. And some British planes shoot down some German planes. The end. That's kind of how it was. Um, I like the movie. Don't get me wrong, I like it. But I thought it was gonna blow my mind, and it didn't. It's a good movie. I might even buy it anyways, just because I like to collect war movies. But there was no on top of that the PG-13. You didn't need blood and guts. Um, It was more. It reminded me of the military and a lot of the messed up situations that leaders make that affect other people. Um, yeah. I'm not gonna get into spoilers. There's not much really to spoil. I may have already spoiled some stuff. I'm not gonna say specifically what happens to what character who lives because I don't even know what their names are. Um, um, yeah. Well, so okay, on the Starstrider scale, I would give this movie uh a 66. Is that about right? I'd give it a 64, which is an above average movie. I'd say it's good. 64, let's say 65. We'll give this movie a 65. How about that? 65 final score. Okay? It's well shot. It's great cinematography as always with Chris Nolan. The sound effects were the best thing. Man, when especially in the IMAX theater, when those planes come screeching by like zoom. Oh man, it's wow. It was powerful. Um, but yeah, I was let down. It was not epic on any scale. And the British just were hardly not even fighting back. Even some scenes where the planes are doing a run, only like maybe a couple of them here and there were shooting back. The rest are just like putting their head between their legs and man, I can't believe you never do that, man. You never give up your position like that until you're actually ready to go. And they weren't even going to help the French. I thought this movie was going to be about the French. I thought the British leave and then the French are just like hosed. That's kind of what I thought. In fact, I think one of the early trailers was like the British leave and leave the French, which they did. But then, like, the French are not a major part at all. They're just like, no, you can't come. Anglais, sumo. All right. Well, anyways, let me know what you guys thought of this movie. Um, I am a bit disappointed. I will say, Chris Nolan. He is man. He is such a great filmmaker. This might not to say that this is his worst doesn't mean that it's bad. Okay, it's a good movie. 65. That's above average film, right? It's good. I just I can't. I'm trying to convince myself as I'm talking to put it in the 70s, but I just can't see anything. I can't name a character. Um, and this movie is called Dunkirk. It's about the event. It's not about Private Ryan. It's not about like it's not like in Black Hawk Down. I can't really name any of the characters, right? I can't name any of the soldiers. But the movie was like you followed these people, and you felt I don't know you felt the intensity of the situation in this movie. What I felt most of all was like, how could anybody screw up this badly? Who made this decision? I felt like, oh my God, we've got bad leaders here. We've got stupid military leaders. Somebody told these guys to pack up and move, and then they had nowhere to go to. They're just there, screwed. It was just, oh my God, I couldn't imagine how screwed you'd be. Anyway, like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think. All right, latest.